So, what age is it where um, someone trick-or-treating is considered creepy? I'm wondering for a friend. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hey kids, welcome back to another exciting, spooky episode of No Subs, No Dubs. I'm your host, Casey Kidd. And if you don't know what No Subs, No Dubs is, it's a podcast where every other week I, your host, watch a foreign flick, an international movie, if you will, without the subtitles and without the dubs, and kind of guess what's going on and attempt to spoil the movie for you. So that's what's going to be coming next. A little bit of housekeeping. We're on twitter.com or x.com, not XXX or XX or any more X. It's just one x.com/no subs, no dubs pod, P-O-D. And if you're listening to this and you like it, or you're like, hey, that was terrible, 5 stars out of 5, rate it a hard 5. And then in the comments, leave your mark like, hey, I didn't like this at all, 5 out of 5. Or if you did like it, maybe leave a nice comment or tell somebody about that. We do the triangle plan here for getting the word out. The triangle plan is where me and my producer are at the top, Baka Boy over there in the control booth center. He's shaking his head, yes. And me, we're telling other people to listen. You people who are listening, thank you. Shout out India, right? For Sharmama, the Indian movie I watched way episodes ago. They're still listening over there, so thanks, guys. And girls, I don't know. But thank you, India. Shout out. Tell other people. It sounds like they're doing the triangle plan. So if you would like to, reach out to 2 other people. Reach out to 2 other people as well. They reach out to more people. And we build a triangle. And everyone benefits. I think that's how it's supposed to go. All right. With the housekeeping out of the way, the intro bit done, let's just get into it. This week, I watched A Tale of Two Sisters, a Korean movie. And unlike the previous podcast, Tale of Two Sisters is not so straightforward. In fact, even if it had subs, I would still probably have plenty of questions going on. Like, what's within? What happened? Was the sister dead the whole time? Fake? Oh, spoiler. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. So this is Tale of Two Sisters. It starts off in a psych office, ward, if you will. There's this institutionalized sister. She's the hat sister. And it's because at the beginning she wears a hat. So I'm calling her the hat sister. There's another sister. She'll come in later. And the hat sister's being interviewed. And she doesn't seem too happy. She's kind of just there, She walks over and sits down at the interview table. And she's all slumped over and stuff. Which if you're in one of those places, I guess, I'd be pretty slumped over too. I'd be like, I'm not happy with this. I don't want to be here. And so she's not responding to the shrink or whoever it is, or the psychologist or whatever. So he's talking to her and he's showing her Polaroid pictures, and she's kind of not really even looking. She's kind of looking out and stuff. And then he's like, you're free to go, right? It's like, good job. You didn't answer any of my questions. Go home. So she goes home, right? She goes home and we get this country drive. It's really nice. There's pretty music going on. There's the kind of music that'd be in something like Spirited Away or one of those movies. It's really pretty. And they pull out and this old guy gets out and the door gets open for her and she comes out, and then, no, actually, I think it's her short-haired sister comes out first and then she comes out. But either way, they both come out of the vehicle. And the short-haired sister, looks around and sees a pepper plant. She goes over to the pepper plant and is like, I like peppers. And I'm like, cool. I like them too, especially in salsa. And then I had called her the PS for Pepper Sister. So that's Pepper Sister. She has the shorter hair. She wasn't institutionalized. That's Hat Sister, because at this point she's wearing a hat. And then after that situation, they kind of look around. There's their house, and it's scary looking. I'm like, that's a scary looking place. Don't go in there. They're like, we will. but right now we gotta explore. So they go exploring on their property or something. That's what I'm also kind of wondering is, are these people exceedingly rich? Maybe. I don't know. But this property looks beautiful. Or are they just wandering around? But they go to a lake. They got their feet in the lake. They're dipping their toes in the water. You get this camera shot from the water being like, the water's green. The water's scary too. And then Hat Sister, she ends up reading the palms of Pepper's sister. And I'm like, don't do that. That implies something bad. If I've seen palm reading in movies, that means someone's life's going to end. There's something scary is going to happen. I don't think they put palm reading in movies very often, unless it's like a scary situation. Like, oh, this is foreboding. Or the person's been dead the whole time. Like, spoiler, Jacob's Ladder. By the way, one of my favorite movies, if not favorite horror movie of all time. So, now that I've ruined Jacob's Ladder, let's go on trying to ruin this. So, it's picturesque, it's beautiful. They decide, no more palm reading, no more toes in the water, let's just go home. So they go home, and into the creepy home, because it's all dark and stuff. And that's where they meet the madam. Now, the madam is really what I can surmise the stepmother, but I wrote madam, so I'm going to keep saying madam. Pepper's sister seems scared, and she's scared of the madam. And it's like, okay, there's something going on, because the sisters don't seem to like this new lady. And then they go up to the rooms, right? Like, they talk a little bit, and they're like, okay, you're scary. We don't like each other. And that's like, aha, something's going to happen here. Let's go to our rooms. It's dark in here, so it's going to be late soon. Then we get the Hat Sister. She goes into her room, removes her hat. And I'm like, oh, I guess I can't call her Hat Sister anymore. So I might call her Institutionalized Sister. Or longer-haired sister. This sister removes her hat and she goes up to a clock that's not working. And she just guesses at the time. She changes the time on the clock. It's not a digital clock. It's like a clock with hands and stuff. So she moves the hands and then like hits the thing so it'll start pendulum swinging. That's close enough. I think it's 4:30 or 6 or whatever. And then she's like, I gotta keep unpacking because I've got stuff I packed from the institution. So I need to unpack it. So she takes out her books. That's, I think, all she had with her was like a journal. I don't know if they let you keep very much in those places. Maybe you can journal? Wasn't it Van Gogh was allowed to like paint? So if you've been in a crazy hut, that's not allowed. You can't say that. A crazy house. Okay? If you've been in a crazy house, are you allowed to pack journals? Like write your experiences and stuff? Well, she has like this journal set, so she picks it up and she's going to put it in a drawer, and she opens up the drawer and there's an exact same set there. And I'm like, doubles. I'm like, scary. I'm like, all right, well, there you go. She searches her room a little bit more and opens a closet. It's like Doug. Remember where Doug has all like the same clothes? She opens it up. Same dresses on one side. Same dresses on the other. Okay. Well, you don't have to worry about what you're going to wear. So that's pretty convenient. Then we get a scene where the madam's doing some laundry. And then the old man from earlier, their father, he's talking on the phone, but he's real secretive about it. And then there's a dinner scene, and everyone's eating in silence. And it's like, this is not comfortable. I understand you picked her up from like a loony bin, but still, you could talk a little bit or something. So it's like silence at this point, and then the madam speaks, and she's kind of talking to the old man. And I think she's talking to him about like work, and he's not having it, so he leaves. He doesn't want to talk to her. And then there's a pill time situation. There's like pills, and I think it looks like the madam takes the pills, but I don't know if she does, because you're going to get twists and turns at the end of this. So it might be the Hat Sister taking the pills, really, and she thinks that the madam's taking it, but I'm not completely sure. There's something going on there. So the old man's left, pill time happens, and then The Hat Sister leaves, and Madam tells the Pepper Sister that she can leave as well. And then the Madam's all alone at the table. And at this point, I'm like, they're treating their stepmom pretty poorly. That seems mean. Well, you'll see, she's not the best person. Spoiler alert. She's kind of a jerk. So, the sisters talk, the Madam checks on her bird. She's got this bird, and she really likes, in her birdporium thing, or, like, in the middle of their house, they've got a little atrium kind of section, and they've got a bird in there, and some plants. I'm like, okay, these people must be rich. And also, they've got an atrium. That's pretty cool. So, the Madam likes her bird. This is important because the bird's gonna fucking die. Let me take a drink of water and try that one again. I think I blew my F-bomb on that. Spoiler alert, the bird's gonna die. And then you're like, ugh, that sucks. So there's this thing where the Madam's like in bed right after this, and she's going to sleep, and the old man, the father, comes in to sleep with the stepmother, but they don't like do any snuggling stuff. He's just fully dressed, and he like pretends to sleep next to her, and then he gets out and goes to his den to sleep in his den. I'm like, why even do the trouble, you know? But maybe it's a different cultural thing. Like, you at least need to show face or something. I don't get it. Now we're getting into some crappy note taking. I wrote, footsteps creepy. Madam wakes. P.S. meaning Pepper Sister wakes too. She wakes. I just said PS2, but that means she wakes up. The door to the PS's room starts to open. So you're thinking it's the Madam. Hand comes. PS hides in the covers. She pretends to sleep. She then gets up and goes to HS. It's almost like Charlie from Always Sunny wrote this. Right? I have to watch these and take notes the whole time. If I watch it once through and then I watch it with the notes, I still write this way. So essentially, there's footsteps. It's all creepy. The Madam wakes up, and then the Pepper System and the Pepper Sister wakes up as well, and then there's a creepy moment. So she has to hide away and go to sleep with her other sister. Now, it's a scary house, so the sisters have a conversation about, like, sleeping in the scary house. It's scary. How do you do it? And Hat Sister's like, I was in an institution. This isn't that bad, but it seems pretty scary to me. However, she's seen some stuff. Now, at this point, Hat Sister's like, you stay here. You're asleep now, Pepper Sister. I'm going downstairs. So she goes downstairs for some reason. I'm not completely sure. And she sees a TV on, and it's just static, right? So someone was watching the static channel, and you're like, the Madam was, getting in on her stories, her creepy static stories. This is not good. Then she goes to the den, because she's like, I know my father's going to be sleeping there. And then she goes in and covers up her father with a blanket. Don't be cold. You're in your den. Be warm. And that's when the Madam comes in and is like right behind her, and she's like, what are you doing in the den? And they have a confrontation. And then the Hat Sister just kind of leaves. It's like, I'm going to the kitchen to get some water. So she goes to the fridge, gets a drink of water, but doesn't like enjoy it. She like drinks it, and she's like, all right, I gotta drink some water. Some of this. It's not IQ enhancing water, which is what I need right now. However, it is delicious island mountain water. Delicious. Next time I might do some IQ enhancing water. Maybe. Or maybe I'll do some dumbass water. I've got an Indian movie in mind, a remake. So, a very recent remake of a beloved American film So there's a hint for you of what I might be watching. Anyway, she gets some water. She struggles to drink it. And then she sees this blood bag and opens it. And gets like all, like the music goes and she drops the bag and it's like this gross meat and she yells and she's looking at the meat and you're like, ugh, someone cut up something gross. And then she goes away. Now, that's when you see the madam watching the TV static. I'm like, she's getting her story set. God. I don't know. And this might not even be happening because, like I said, I don't know what's real in this movie or not because the ending that I'll spoil anyway later, but you gotta wait for the ending. All right, so Madam's watching the TV static, and then the sisters they're back in bed, and they talk about this whole situation. So her stories are TV static. That's weird. And also this house is scary, and father sleeps in his den. All right. Oh, and by the way, there was a meat bag. I think I was better off, in the nut house. It was better over there. That place was less scary. And there was someone who stabbed someone in the face like 8 times and then ate his liver. That was weird. With fava beans and a Chianti. All right. Moving on from the talking stuff, we see the old man, he wakes. And then it's like, okay, you're up. Cool. You don't really do anything much in this movie for now. He seems depressed. And then it's back to the hat-wearing sister, institutionalized sister. She has a nightmare or a night terror. What's there's nightmares where you're like running down a hall and someone's chasing you with a knife and you're like, oh no, I'm going to die. Or you're falling and you keep falling or your teeth really hurt and they fall out or something. Have these all the time. Night terrors, which is like when you moan in your sleep, right? Or is that when you wake up and you're all sweaty and you scream, but you don't remember it? I think a nightmare you usually remember. A night terror is like when you come in, you're screaming, sweating, and you just can't sleep. But I honestly don't know. What is the difference between a night terror and nightmare? And you're like, why don't you just Google it? I prefer not to. I prefer to stay willfully ignorant until someone tells me otherwise. Why know everything? Knowing might be half the battle, but I don't have to get into a battle if I don't know. Think about that. All right. So she has a nightmare. She wakes up from her nightmare and she sees someone crawling. It's like a Ring situation. I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. And the crawling monster lady, she's creeping up toward the bed. She stands up and like her neck's broken for a second. And you're like, fix your neck. Don't crawl toward me and then stand up with a broken neck, you monster. So she fixes her neck and then she stands up on the bed over the sister and starts bleeding from the nether regions, as they say, right? And a baby hand starts coming down her like skirt and gross, not good. So Hat Sister wakes up and is like, that was a nightmare. And the old man, I think he woke up because he's like, I heard night terrors. So he goes up to institutionalized sister's room. And he opens the door and he's like, you good? And she's like, hands don't come out, do they? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you seem okay. So I'm out of here. So he leaves again. Well, Hat Sister gets up and she sees some blood, like on her hand or something. So she gets the covers off because the other sister's sleeping with her. She gets the covers off of her and she sees like spotted blood spots, which implies like a period or a dropping of one's egg. I don't know the medical term. Hat Sister's not having it. She's like, this is scary. So she goes over and steals some pads from the madam's room. And madam like catches her. And she's like, what are you doing? And the sister's like, blood. And then Madam laughs about it and is like, yeah, ha ha ha, I'm a jerk. So yeah, laughs about it, right? And then the sisters are outside and they're whistling while the linens dry, okay? Because they took off the linens from the bed because there's blood. And then the next thing you know is it's in the wind, is drying because they're rich, but I guess they don't have a washing machine dryer. Or they might just have the washing machine and like the wind dry thing instead of just drying it in a dryer, right? Like, if you own that much property, you might as well get a nice dryer. It saves a lot of time. That's all I'm saying. However, some people like that wind-swept dryness in their linens. I like the heated dry. And then you put the linens down and you put the blanket on top of you and you snuggle in like you're a cigar. I don't think that makes sense. However, we can cut around this, cut everything out. Everything I say we can just cut out and just get to the facts. So they're out there. One of them is whistling. The bird is chirping along because the bird's out here for this. And then there's some talking between the sisters. Always talking. You know how it is between sisters. They can't read minds. They're not twins. And one's the older sister, one's the younger sister, so they rely on talking. Okay? And the old man comes out. He asks about the whistling, and he talks to the hat sister. And the hat sister says, I'm going to take a stroll. So she goes to an abandoned greenhouse. And like, nothing's good in an abandoned place. Don't go there. Well, nothing really happens. She just goes there and looks around. She's like, I'm here. And then she comes back. She goes back to her room or her sister's room or something. She opens up a box and she's looking at Polaroids of her family, of pictures of her and the sister and her old mom. And she's happy because she's looking at her old mom and she's like, these pictures remind me of a better time when I wasn't in a scary house. Well, she keeps flipping through the pictures and one after the other, and then finally she sees the madam, a nurse's outfit. And then the madam's again in another one, and then again in another one, and again in another one, and just like there. And she's like really upset about this. So she puts the pictures away and she's all upset. And that's when Pepper's sister comes in. And she's like, hey, you want to look at some knickknacks? Don't look at these Polaroids, but look at these knickknacks. So they go over and they look at some of those knickknack stuff. They do some knickknack looking for a little bit. And then there's a situation where Hat Sister gets up. She looks at Pepper's sister and notices there's cut marks on her arm. She looks at the cut marks and she starts screaming about it. She's like, this is not good. And they have a disagreement, let's say. They have a scuffle. Then it's back down. There's a conversation between Hat Sister and the madam. That kind of happens. It's a tense conversation. This is happening in the kitchen, at the kitchen table. And the old man, while he's shaving, he's running water. And then he stops running the water and he kind of listens in a little bit. And then Hat Sister, at this point, she breaks some dishes. She gets really mad. They have dishes on the table and she, does a arm sweeping movement and breaks the dishes on the floor. And she goes away. And then the old man comes in and he's like half shaven. And he's like, what's going on? And Hat Sister and him get into it. And they start having a squabble. And that's pretty much it. I think what the conversation is like, why is my sister all cut up in her arms? And then the madam was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Your sister's made up. And she's like, she's not made up. And then madam's like, have you seen the end of this movie? And she's like, no, don't spoil it for me. Then she goes away and the old man's like, you need to relax. And they get into an argument. And then it cuts from there and it goes to this classical music. We're getting these visitors coming in. They're doing like this night drive. It's kind of creepy. Classical music's playing. The madam's getting ready for the visitors. The visitors is a guy and this girl. And I think they're related or friends to the madam. Maybe one of them's like a kid of hers. I don't know. I mean, that would kind of track. I'm not completely sure. It was this nice food dinner kind of thing. And the madam's talking and telling some sort of hilarious story. I think I don't. She's talking about the story and she's getting really excited and into it. And she's kind of she's telling a joke, but she's making a butt of herself because the old man is like looking around like, this isn't funny. And the guests, the guy and the girl, aren't laughing either. Okay, so they're all upset. And Madam's trying and no one's happy. So they're all upset and it takes the wind out of her sails. And for a brief moment, I was like, I feel bad for this lady. So she tells this joke, falls flat, it bombs. And so they're like, okay, let's eat this food anyway. And then the girl's like, all right, I'm going to take a bite. Takes one bite, starts choking, starts having an epileptic fit. She falls down, she's all like foaming out the mouth, going, freaking out, like her legs and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's getting scary again. Someone poisoned the food. I don't know. Or there are nuts in it, and she's not supposed to eat nuts, or she just saw a strobe light for some reason. They had a strobe light in there, and it got flashing. And the girl's on there, and everyone's freaking out, trying to help her out and stuff. It's almost like a possession situation. And this is when they go get pills. And it's like that Dumb and Dumber scene where they just start shoving pills in their mouth. They're like, pills are good. Pills are good. Eat the pills. And then she gets better and she gets up and she's like, I gotta get out of here. So the guests leave. Okay. And on the drive back, the lady's remembering it. And she remembers while she's on the ground, she looked down under a cupboard and she saw a demon. And you see the demon and you're like, whoa, that's not good. Was the demon poisoning? I don't know. And they just drive off and you don't really see them very much until like the end. And you're like, who are these people? Why are they here again? Okay. Well, whatever it is, Madam's left alone because she's like, I wanted to impress these people. The one lady had a fit and is now gone and saw a demon. And she's alone at the table because the old man left. He just kind of leaves a lot. And she seems all pretty upset about it. So she goes over to the kitchen sink because she's sitting alone and she looks over and she sees the kitchen sink door. It's kind of open a little and she's like, I wonder what's in that door. Like, don't go there. You're literally looking at it and it just kind of opened a little for you. And if you go over there and you open it more, what do you expect? Well, we know there's a demon somewhere in this house. We know there's a neck-broke demon as well. This isn't good. But the madam's like, I'm going to go over there and open the door more. And then there's like nothing in it. So you're going, phew, I didn't have to see anything scary. However, when she closes the door, she looks down and she sees this nail thing, I think, on the ground. So she goes down to pick it up. When she goes down to pick it up, a human hand comes out from, no, not a human hand, a demonic hand comes out and grabs her from under the sink area. And of course she like kind of freaks out a little bit. And the other thing that's kind of creepy there is while she's going down to reach, she's turned and there's someone just sitting at the table. I was like, And then the hand comes out and she like looks around. She's like, I can't even see, is the demon there or not? Well, maybe not. I'm not sure if the demons in this are real. So the madam gets upset, so she talks to the old man. She's like, I need you to investigate this house for me. So he's like, all right, I'll go investigate if you tell me to. Old man goes up and he looks around a little bit. Then he goes to where the bird cage was in the bird atrium with the one bird. And he slowly opens it up and dead bird. Just dead birds. Like, not good. He's looking at it and he's like, dead birds is not good. I don't like this situation. So, we get back to the madam, and the madam goes into Pepper's sister's room, and she sees the Polaroids that the sisters were looking at earlier. And a number of the Polaroids have the madam's like face ripped off of it, so they're no longer in the pictures. And of course she gets really mad about this situation. So she's going to confront the Pepper sister about this. And she's like, hey, what's the deal? So she starts by opening up the bed because Pepper sister's been asleep. She's been just out of it for the whole time. She finds a dead bird in the bed. Now, this is where Madam freaks out, obviously, because you don't kill a pet and you don't kill a bird. That's unacceptable. However, she puts the Pepper sister into in her closet for punishment, and locks it. And she tells the Pepper sister off, and she kind of opens it and tells her off again, and locks it again. She's like, you're going to be in here. And she is basically just locking her away. It gives her the Harry Potter treatment. Now, the next day, the Hat Sister wakes up and visits her sister's room, and she sees that there's been a struggle because there was a fight going on there. And she opens the door and saves Pepper's sister. And you think something creepy's going to come out, but it's just Pepper's sister who was locked up. Then we get a bird burial. The old man, he comes to the sisters and talk about the Polaroids. And the Hat Sister's talking about abuse or something. And they kind of have a whole upset argument thing. And Pepper's sister is screaming and they're all upset. And the old man makes a phone call at the end of it. Right? So they're having this conversation. And he kind of goes away and he makes a phone call. Now, after this phone call, this is where the madam lugs this bag. She hits this bag with a stick multiple times. And it's a blood bag. It's a big bag. It's a bag that you would put a person in. And you're kind of jumping around, but this is kind of how the movie went. So it jumped to this. And then you realize, oh, Hat Sister's having another nightmare. This is not good. Then the note gets pushed into her room. Because her room's been locked up. She's locked in and it's all nailed down. So she's in her own room. But she ends up getting out of it. It doesn't really show. She just reads this note real quick, opens the door, and starts going through the house. And when she's downstairs, she looks and she sees this blood path. She follows the blood path, goes off the path real quick, turns and finds this blood bag. And in this bag, it's tied up. You can see the trail. You're like, oh no, this is not good. Someone's in there dead. So she's opening up the rope that's tied around the bag. And you're thinking, where's the old man in this situation? Is he still on the phone? I guess he's gone madam somewhere else. Probably recuperating, from beating this bag with a stick. And Pepper's sister, I assume, is in the bag. Hat Sister opens up the bag and just looks horrified and, everything's not good. And then we see a tea kettle. And it's steaming, it's boiling up, right? The water's going. And then there's a situation where the Hat Sister goes into the kitchen and she's opening up another cupboard and she sees another bag and she's going to open it and it's another blood bag. She starts to open it and that's when the madam comes in. She's got the tea kettle and she goes over and tries to hit the sister with a teapot. And there's a fight that ensues. And then the Hat Sister stabs the madam in the hand with some scissors. She does the scissor stab. And then they fight a little bit. And the madam gets thrown on her back. She hits this medical box. And the box breaks open. And a bunch of hooks fall on the floor. Like the box was just filled with fishing hooks. And the madam falls on the fishing hooks. I'm like, that's not good. Why'd you keep your fishing hooks with your medical supplies? Okay, that wasn't a good situation now, was it? That wasn't good thinking for the future. So she's all stabbed up, and then she gets up and she fights some more, and she pushes Hat Sister to fall down and hits her head on a counter. So Hat Sister's like, boom. She's all out of it and stuff. I was like, you got the counter hit. And Madam starts moving Hat Sister's body. Okay? However, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, a little bit weird. I'll go back to it. So she falls on the counter, gets hit, And that's when Madam tries to move Hat Sister's body and starts bringing her into the hallway. And she goes over, she's like, "You're going to be right here now. You're hurt and you're immovable for a second. So I'm going to smash you with something." So she goes over and gets a statue, and she pulls the statue over, lifts it up, and she's going to smash Hat Sister. But before she can smash, that's where old man, he comes in, and he's like, "I'm here," and the smashing doesn't occur. And then all right. So the last bit of notes I got here aren't going to help the situation, because it gets weird. And I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain the end, and I can only go with what I think happened. So this is how I remember it. The smashing doesn't occur. Hat Sister, the institutionalized sister, is sitting at a couch afterwards, and there's a talk between her and the old man. The old man steps out and walks outside of the room for a minute, and in comes, slowly panning up, the face of the Hat Sister, just looking like, oh my God, it's a monster. And it goes up, and it's the Madam. And you think, the Madam just ran away or something and was trying to kill everybody. But no, the Madam's there, and she actually kind of looks like she's trying to be nice. And she's looking at Hat Sister, and she's like, "I'm here." And you're like, okay, what is this getting to? And then it goes into the sister, the Hat Sister, and you get a bunch of like kind of flashbacks where Pepper Sister was never there. Hat Sister was institutionalized, right? But a lot of the stuff that you thought happened didn't happen. And the demons weren't real, but they could have been real. But they're like, we got to institutionalize you again, because your sister's not alive. You're thinking she is, but she isn't. So they send her back to the institution. They're like, you got to keep this kid out of our haunted house, right? She's not doing well there. She's going to do much better in a psych ward than a haunted house. And they're like, okay. And then there's a scene where the Madam and the sister are talking on her ward bed, her room bed or whatever. And the sister grabs her wrist, because she's not really talking to the Madam. Madam's saying some stuff, maybe talking some shit. I don't know. And sister grabs her wrist and like squeezes, and Madam's like, I gotta get, ow. And she goes, "I gotta get away from you. I'm going away now. I try to help you, but now you're squeezing my wrist. You're not cool." So she goes off, and she goes back home. Okay? When the Madam goes back home, she goes to a scary room. Okay? This is what the fate of the Madam. So they were in a haunted house, it seems like, because she goes into, I think, the sister's room, one of them. Yeah, I don't know. She goes into this room, and the room locks her in, and it's like, why are you alone here? You shouldn't be in this room. And it's the room where the cabinet was, and the cabinet opens up, and she's like, I'm going to explore the cabinet. So she opens up the cabinet and sees this laundry that was done on the bottom, but sees a tab. She's like, I'm going to pull on this tab, and out pops a monster, and then she's just yelling. And that's when we pull away from the house. And then you see the Hat Sister sleeping. So it's like the Hat Sister was put in the institution, back into the institution, because she was making up all this stuff that happened, but it wasn't really made up, because there were demons, possibly, but her sister wasn't alive, but was alive one time, and it was gone, because at the end of it, it's like a party between, I think that's what it is. I think there's a party in its way in the past, and this is when both sisters are alive. The Pepper sister's up in her room, asleep, and she wakes up and she opens up a cabinet and sees her mom's hanging there dead in her room. And she, of course, freaks out, tries like grabbing at her mom, and the whole cabinet comes in and collapses on them. And everyone kind of hears something, but they don't really hear it. There's the guy and the girl, the visitors, they were there. And so they look up for a second. The old man, the father, looks up for a second. And the madam and the hat sister, I think, are there and kind of look up for a second. Well, or no, the hat sister was still asleep. The madam kind of looks up for a second and then goes into the room because she's like, I'm going to do some like sniffing about. So she goes into the room, sees the cabinets, crushed the girl, and, they're both there, and she has a flight or fight moment, or she has a bitch moment, I don't know. So she walks out of it, and she walks out and sees Hat Sister's just woken up from sleep, gets out of her room. They have a conversation, doesn't go very well, and Hat Sister says, well, I'm out of here. So they talk, there's some sort of arguing. Hat Sister leaves the house in the past, right? And the Pepper Sister, you think, suffocates in the cabinet under her dead mom. And that's the demons that haunted it. Now, the last bit before that, where the madam gets her comeuppance for that situation, is like why she gets locked in. She has to deal with a monster in the cabinet. And that part's creepy. That's the movie, kind of, there's like a black and white photograph kind of look thing of Hat Sister as she's leaving, and then it ends with the credits, and they're both at the lake again. Now, for the love of God, let's see. There's the play-by-play. Honestly, here's what I make it out to be, what I think happened. I think the old man was having an affair. He had 2 kids. The visitors were the guy and the girl were somehow related or knew the madam, the nurse lady, the new stepmom. They were all having a party for some reason, and the old mom found out about it, and in like the worst way possible, decided to hang herself in her kid's room. The kid freaked out, went over, and the cabinet fell on her, and Pepper's sister and the mom died. This is what institutionalized Hat Sister. Hat Sister maybe came back, imagined that her sister was still alive, was going through something traumatic, and the stepmom was still there or wasn't there. I'm not completely sure. Maybe was there. And the old man was just like beaten down by the whole situation because they both died at the same time, and he felt guilty about the affair, and they couldn't make it work. And then there were demons, I guess, haunting the place. And then the stepmom for just kind of leaving and, being nefarious in general. That's what happened, I think. I don't know. That was a long way to say that. As far as movie goes, that was pretty good. That was confusing as all hell. However, there's some stuff. I don't think it was that scary, honestly. However, I felt like, I wonder if it was because I was very confused on what's going on and what isn't. There was a bit of talking, so if it had subs, maybe I'd be able to follow it a little bit more. Why they didn't like each other at the beginning, and then at the end you're like, oh, okay, clearly that's why you don't like each other. The music was good. Sometimes it was very beautiful. Picturesque would be a word for the countryside and the lake and all that stuff. And the scares, I don't think were really there. Even if you understood what was going on, I don't think it was that frightening. So as a horror movie, I don't think it was that scary. But as a movie, it was pretty good. I think I'm going with like a hard 3, soft 4, depending on the day. If I knew what was going on, I was thinking make a soft 4, but a hard 3, somewhere in that range. The scariest part is when the house kind of locked itself. The room locked itself around the madam. That was the scariest bit. And that was good. The other bits weren't that scary. They were building an atmosphere. And I think building an atmosphere was pretty good. However, it just wasn't that frightening. But it looked great. Music was good, and the acting was pretty decent. So give it a solid 4. That's what I'm gonna go with it. Maybe we'll get out of this horror range. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Rate it hard 5 out of 5. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell rich people. There's patreon.com/no subs, no dubs. Much appreciated. $2 a month. 2 episodes, maybe a couple more. Bonus episodes every once in a while if we can get to them. And I'm your host, Casey Kidd, the Kamikaze Kid, blowing up all over this bitch. Take it away, baka boy. The head's supposed to come out first. Or a leg, I think, or a butt or something. Or you cut through the stomach and you just plop out the guts on the chest. I think that's how they move the guts up the chest and then they pull the baby straight out and they're like, the baby's fine. You're looking at the mom and you're like, holy shit. That's a horror nightmare I'll never forget. And then they're like, no, we just put the guts back in and then sew the woman up. And you're holding your baby and you're like, ah, precious child. And you look at the doped up mother and you're like, how are you going to recover from this? And then they do. Then they got their guts cleaned out and sewn back in and they're all good. But a hand just popping out, not good. Well, the point is, baby birthing is scary and a hand popping out is very scary. Or bush, or I don't think they have pepper bushes. They've got like, how do you call it? Berry bushes. Strawberries don't grow on a bush, though, do they? Blackberries grow on a bush. The exciting crap. And that's the thing. That's why I have to have notes. I was going to wing this one, and then we tried like a practice, and I just started talking about something, and I don't even remember. I think it was like bulgogi or whatever. I was like, bulgogi's delicious. And then my producer was like, Baka Boy's over there going, you can't just talk about food. And I'm like, I'm always talking about food. Movies make me hungry. Whenever they eat or something, or when a movie has like a certain kind of mood, this movie has a soup noodle mood. And it's not just because it's Korean. Because like, you want to be warmed up when you're watching it because it doesn't feel very warm at times. It feels very dark and scary. And I like noodles. So, Baka Boy's shaking his head like, get on with it. They get out of the vehicle. You haven't even said anything they get out of the vehicle, right? And she goes over to the pepper bush plant. Frick.